Let us start. And yesterday we are all discussing about that methods. So when I'm explaining that methods, it can be inbuilt at that static methods. Yesterday also we are all discussing that static and non-static methods. How to accessing that static methods and non-static methods also. We are all in discuss that method topic. Okay. So here the main method. What is that main method? What is the use of that main method also? Without that main method, you have to use it in the program. It is compiling the program without the using of the main method. Hmm. No, without the using of that main method you have to compiling that program. How it can be working? It is working or it is executed? No. Why? Because main method only which class reads it. Without the mentioning that main method, without the using of that main method, that compiling, it is not allowing the entire the program. So that is the use, that is the one of the rule. Okay, in that's why in that time also, without the using of that main method, you have to execute the program. So how it can be getting that error also? And yesterday we are already observed that one, and yesterday. Okay, so the Java what is that? A Java first program. So this program also, and previous also we are all discussed that first program in the sense sample program. Hello Java, the hello HQ, and these are all programs you are already executed using command line arguments also. So in the Java programming, you have to execute it through command program. Yes, how to compile that Java file, and how to execute that class files, and these are all things already and previous already we are all discussed and executed. And fourth phase is that introducing classes. What is that? Introducing classes. So this introducing classes in the sense, here the class is the, what is that class? Collection of objects. Collection of objects. Which creates a blueprint. No. Yes, exactly. What is that? It creates a blueprint actually. Okay. ఒకసారి ప్రాజెక్టర్ పెడదామా, ట్రై చేద్దామా? One moment guys. It is visible. It's okay. Here today onwards, we will discuss about that. Yes. um, what is it? What is class? Okay. And second topic is that how do we create a class. And third one is the, what are the different options that we have. And while creating class from Eclipse. And fourth one, what are the members of a class? half a class. Okay, right. And first one is the what is the class? What is the class in sense? Class is a blueprint. It contains a methods and variables. It contains a methods and variables. So here the class whenever you creating that class it contains a variables and methods. So here when you're taking one thing or one object, so water bottle is the one object, laptop is the one object, and chair is the one object, and each and everything in real world, each and everything is a one object. It contains bag also one object, okay, pen also one object. So each and every object it contains a properties. It contains a properties. What is that properties actually? For example, here the one water bottle is there, so that is it can be contains a properties. So properties in the sense, properties in the sense, cap, bottle, and water, and that's the thing. Those are all the contains properties of that object. Okay, and each and everything what you have to thinking about that thing, so that is contains a it having a properties. Okay, so and here that object in programming side, the that contains properties in the sense that is those are all the variables. That contains in the sense variables. Okay, so that variables and each and every variable it can be having that functionality. Okay, that functionality purpose you have to using that methods. Okay, so for example, if you want to take the one car, so that car contains a some of the, yes, the car contains a some of the properties. Okay, properties in the sense what type of properties it can have. It can be having that car. Hmm.
What is the main object they are?
Of course, that properties, car properties. Wheels, steering, and brake, and accelerator, and clutch, and these are all the properties. Okay, so each and every property it can be having that it's contain a functionality. So that functionality representing purpose you have to using the method. Okay, so that method it contains a paragraphs. That method it can be contains a paragraphs. And here variables and methods also you have to establish in, or you have to mention, or you have to develop into the only body. Variables and methods you have to inbuilt into the only body. Out of that body, whenever you mentioning that methods and variables, it cannot be functioning in your class. Okay, did you understand this one?
Yes, sir.
Now, right, for example, here just you have to use that one program. So that is the here just you mentioning that class, and whenever you mentioning that class, just you have to assign the name. Okay, for example, some of the students gathering one place at place. Actually, I have to call one person. How can I call? By the using of name. Okay, yes. So without the name, I am calling Ilarandi. Come here. Huh? Yes, exactly. So I am not particularly one person. I am not mentioning any particular one person. In that way, and each and every person, it can be they can be respond. So in that way, I have to using in one particular by the name. I have to when I am calling, then that person only they have to be respond. Okay, so in the same way, and here also, in the one object you have to create a number of classes you have to establish in that particular one object. Okay, in that way, that categorization purpose and particular what is that mentioning particular functionality purpose and particular functioning purpose, you have to using name. Without the name, that class, it cannot be functioning in your object. Okay, in that way, whenever you're mentioning or whenever you're using that class name, class keyword, then you have to mention immediately that name also. So how can you assign that name, that class name? For here, for example, a class name is the, for example, execute. Class name is the execute. So how can you assign that execute class name?
By writing the method in the class flow.
Yes, what type of methods and what type of functionality you have to mentioning in that particular class depends on that functionality, depends on that calculation. You have to
Write the program.
Assign the class name. Okay, so why you are depending in that way?
First to execute.
So without that functionality, and based on that functionality, based on that methods, for example, you are not assigning that class name. So on that time, it cannot be executed, that class. క్లాస్ అనేటువంటి దాన్ని మనం క్రియేట్ చేసినప్పుడు ఆ ఫంక్షనాలిటీ మీద లేకపోతే ఆ మెథడ్స్ మీద డిపెండ్ అవ్వకుండా మనం క్లాస్ నేమ్ అనేటువంటి దాన్ని అసైన్ చేసాం. అప్పుడు మనకి క్లాస్ అనేటువంటిది ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవదా? అవదా?
అవుతుంది సార్.
Whatever you want, that name, it can be executed. If you want,
functionality మీద బేస్ అయ్యే కదా సార్ మనం క్లాస్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తాం.
why? Of course, but you are not assigning for that based on that functionality. You are not assigning that based on that methods, and these are all things. Of course, you have to assigning it personally. Your name, you have to assigning for that class name. On that time, it is not executable.
I execute.
Execute whatever it may be. If you want to assigning that pig name, then also it can be executed. Okay, but why you are assigning for that based on that functionality and based on that methods, you are assigning that name, class name? Why you are assigning that class name? Any reason?
Sir, to know the what's the program we are writing.
Yes, exactly. So in that purpose only, you have to using that based on that functionality and based on the methods, you have to assign that name. For example, in yesterday, you are writing on that program by the using of bank. Different type of methods you have to in using in that particular one class, that is the bank actually. How can you assigning that bank, that class name?
Because we are creating the program bank processing.
Yes, exactly. The bank processing in different type of methods, you have to involved in that particular thing only, how it can be functioning, that methods, and why you are mentioning that type of methods and you are using in that particular class. So based on that functionality, based on that methods, you have to write the class name. Okay, so whenever you observing that bank, then automatically you have to thinking about that bank only. What type of methods involved in that particular bank? In that way, you have to assigning for that name. Okay, so that is the thing actually, that is the name actually. So here, whenever you're using that class name, in first letter you have to make sure that first letter is the capital letter. Okay, so that is the very most important actually. Without the capital letter, you have to assigning that class name, it can be executed that class.
It's showing my identification.
No, actually it can be executed.
No, sir.
No need to restricted that compiler. Whatever you mentioning here, మనం ఏదైతే ఇక్కడ మెన్షన్ చేస్తున్నామో అది ఎవరికి చెప్తున్నట్టు? ఏదైతే మనం క్లాస్లో మాట్లాడుతున్నాం, ఏదైతే క్లాస్లో మనం రాస్తున్నామో, ఏదైతే చేస్తున్నామో అది ఎవరితో చెప్తున్నట్టు? మెథడ్ రాస్తున్నాము అవునా, పారాగ్రాఫ్స్ రాస్తున్నాము, వాల్యూస్ అసైన్ చేస్తున్నాము, ఇది ఇలాగనే నువ్వు ఎవరితో మాట్లాడుతున్నావు? క్లాస్ నేమ్ కూడా నువ్వు నా క్లాస్ నేమ్ ఇది అని ఎవరితో మాట్లాడుతున్నావు?
Objects,
Huh?
object.
ఆబ్జెక్ట్ అనేది కూడా యూ హ్యావ్ టు క్రియేటెడ్ దట్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్. ఐ హ్యావ్ టు క్రియేటెడ్ దిస్ ఆబ్జెక్ట్. ఎవరితో మాట్లాడుతున్నావు? ఆ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ నేను క్రియేట్ చేశానని.
Compile.
ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ. యూ హ్యావ్ టు డిస్కస్
Compile.
to compiler only. So my variable in this one, my value I have to assigning for that, assigning to this variable. I have to created this object, and these are all things you have to discussing to
Compile.
compiler only. Okay, so that compiler, how it can be functioning, how it can be passing on that rules, you have to know. First you have to know that, then only you have to discuss about that each and everything. Okay, to whom? Only compiler. అవునా? ఇప్పుడు నేను ఒకరితో నేను మాట్లాడాలని అనుకున్నప్పుడు నా లాంగ్వేజ్ అనేటువంటిది ఎదుటివాడికి అర్థం అవ్వాలని అనుకున్నట్లయితే అతనికి ఏం రావాలి? నా లాంగ్వేజ్ అతనికన్నా వచ్చి ఉండాలి, అతని లాంగ్వేజ్ నాకన్నా వచ్చి ఉండాలి. అవునా? అప్పుడే మనం పర్ఫెక్ట్గా అతనితో మాట్లాడగలదు. సో నీ లాంగ్వేజ్ నాకు రావాలి అంటే ఫస్ట్ ఏం చేయాలి? నేను నేర్చుకోవాలి. అవతలేపు మాట్లాడుతున్నటువంటి వ్యక్తి రాంగ్ వర్డ్స్ యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాడు. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ రాంగ్ వర్డ్స్ యూజ్ చేస్తుంటే నువ్వు అలా కాదండి, ఇలా కాదండి, అదండి అని మాట్లాడుతూ ఉన్నావు అనుకో,
They don't understand.
అండర్స్టాండ్. బట్ అతను అవతలైపు ఉన్నటువంటి వ్యక్తి నిన్ను ఎలా చూస్తాడు అని అంటే చీప్గా చూస్తాడు. అవునా కదా? చాలా చీప్గా చూస్తాడు. ఎవరిని? వాడిని, అవతలైపు వాడిని. ఇతను రాంగ్ వర్డ్స్ మాట్లాడుతున్న వాడైనా చీప్గా చూస్తాడు. అతను మంచిగా ఇతను రాంగ్ వర్డ్స్ మాట్లాడుతున్నటువంటి అతన్ని చీప్గా చూస్తాడు. ఇద్దరు కంపల్సరీ చీప్గా చూస్తారు. అవునా కదా? సో కాబట్టి యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఫాలో ద రూల్స్. అవునా? ఏమంటారు? మనం గౌరవం ఇచ్చి పుచ్చుకోవాలి. మనం గౌరవిస్తే ఎదుటివాడు కూడా గౌరవిస్తాడు. సో ఇన్ ద సేమ్ వే కంపైలర్ ఆల్సో యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఫాలో. నీ రూల్స్ని అది ఫాలో అవ్వదు, కానీ దాని రూల్స్ మనం ఫాలో అవ్వాలి. అప్పుడే అది మనం చెప్పినట్టుగా చేస్తుంది ఇన్ దిస్ జావా. Okay, so that is the thing actually here. And most of the senior persons, they have to be using, and first character is the capital letter. In that way we are also using in that way. Okay, that's the reason. In the sense the manaki compiler reason em kaadu, compiler yokka rule emi kaadu. Without the using of that class name in capital letter and small letter also it can be taken. But so for this class accessing purpose, you have to use the some of the what you have to mentioning that class accessing purpose, to the purpose of accessing for that class. What you call those are all that
Accessing modifiers.
Modifiers only. Okay, so here without that mention modifiers, what are the modifiers? Default, private, public, protect. 4 types of modifiers is there. Okay, so here in always if you not assigning any restrictions for that class, if you want to assigning that restriction for the accessing for that class, and that only you have to use the protect, private and protection purpose. You have to use the only private and protect and default. So public is always, and any class or any member they have to be accessing for that. Public is the keyword. Okay, the public is the modifier. Okay, here I'm not using any accessing modifiers. Okay, here just to use that. What is that? For example, if you want to class, just you have to maybe always just you have to mention public. Okay, public class name, class name. Okay, then when you're creating the class, then you have to start the, what is that? Yes, whenever you opening that bracket, curling bracket, what it can be starting? Main function. That is the main method. Okay, so whenever you start that left brace after the creation of that class, what it can be starting? Huh? What you call that one?
User defined class.
User defined class. Body. What is that?
Body
Body of the function. Okay. Just okay. Right. So body of the function. So next line, what you have to mention here,
Public static void means
in that class contain,
HQ.
in the class contain, what it can be contained that class.
Array.
no.
ఇందాకే చెప్తున్నా. That class contain variables.
Variables and methods.
అంటే ఎవరైనా అందించాలేమో ప్రతిసారి వేరియబుల్స్ అండ్ మెథడ్స్ అని వేరే మళ్ళీ వెంటనే స్టార్ట్ అయిపోతున్నారు. క్లాస్ కంటెంట్ ఇది చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. అదేనా వైవో క్వశ్చన్ ఇది డెఫినెట్గా అడుగుతాడు. How can you create the class? How can you access the class? And how can you assign the name? How to assign that name? And after the creation of that class, what you have to establish? These are all questions very important. Okay, so here just you have to mention what is that?
Variables.
Variables, exactly. So whenever you're using that variable, right? So here you have to use that variable. So variable, how can you create that variable?
By using data type.
Okay, by using data type you have to create. So what based on that you have to assign it, and this is the variable. How can you create? How can you thinking about that variable? ఒక క్లాస్ అనేటువంటి దాన్ని క్రియేట్ చేసిన తర్వాత వేరియబుల్ అనేటువంటి దాన్ని ఎలా క్రియేట్ చేస్తాం అంటే నువ్వు ఎలాగ ఆలోచన చేస్తావు వేరియబుల్ అంటే క్లాస్ ఏది క్రియేట్ చేసినప్పటికీ కూడా వేరియబుల్ ఏ బి అండ్ సి అని చెప్పారని అంటామా
No, sir.
No.
ఎలా
Like integer.